I wanted to share my experience with fixing a camera problem. The system is a Sony VCB62MH color camera system, and the side camera itself is a Sony VCB SB3MHD. It is now July 2020, and I don't think this camera system is made anymore. In fact, I may have read that Sony no longer manufactures camera systems for motorhomes. So if you're having a problem, you're likely wanting to do whatever you can to avoid the expense of a complete replacement. For about 3 years, my left turn camera had been intermittently going out during a trip. It typically would work when we started out, then stop working. It might start and stop again during the trip, but generally, once it went black, like what you're seeing here, it was done for the day. But then it might start and be just fine the next day. A word of caution, if your problem is different, such as fuzzy spots in the picture, for example, I've seen several posts in the forums about that, it may be a failing camera. Even at that, you might still find some helpful information in this video, but I didn't suspect a failing camera was my problem because of the pattern. It would work, stop working, work, stop working. And mostly it didn't work, but when it did work, it gave a good picture. Let's talk about the suspected root cause. It sounded to me like a loose wire. But where? Behind the monitor? Or somewhere between the monitor and the camera? I'm going to repeatedly refer to two wires. Let's give them names so that we're on the same page. Let's call them the monitor cable and the camera wire. Now, those aren't official names. That's just what I'm designating them for purposes of this video. The monitor cable is a nominally 15-foot multi-conductor cable that connects to the back of the monitor and runs behind the dash into the front cap of the coach. And somewhere in that front cap, it connects to the camera wire, which is a short length of 4-conductor wire coming through the side of the coach from the camera itself. And those two wires are connected by these. On the internet, I found them to be referred to variously as Tyco/AMP AMP mini multi-lock connectors and Green's Sony style connectors. So, what did I do to fix the problem? Once I found this connector in the front cap, I suspected it to be most likely the cause of the problem, a loose wire related to this connector. So in the end, what I did that I believe has solved my problem is simply get rid of that connector between the monitor cable and the camera wire by direct connecting and soldering the wires. So now I have no connector in my left turn camera circuit, and I believe that connector was the root cause. However, a simpler solution may have been available, and I want you to be aware of it. This connector includes the green male and female ends. The female end has these tiny needle-like contacts. This is what mine looked like up close. And the male end is attached to this black plug that is an integral part of the monitor cable. This plug is prefabricated as part of the cable. See, there is no splice joint where you can separate the black part of the plug from the cable itself with its external insulation. And inside that plug, you can't really see how it's configured. And that fact made this problem hard to solve. If yours is anything like mine, this connector is next to impossible to access. How do you get two hands and your head so you can see back in there? If only they'd made this camera wire longer, no problem. Then I could have pulled the connector out into the generator space before trying to separate it. But I was not able to get both my hands in there to properly separate the two ends of the green connector. I only succeeded in destroying the connector by pulling it apart in the wrong place. And by the way, anyone who's ever worked with electrical connectors, anything like these, knows a person needs 3 hands to separate them. 1 to press on it with a sharp pointed object here, and 2 to grasp the 2 ends here and here to pull them apart. But even worse, when you can barely get your 2 hands in there to begin with. So probably best to go ahead and pull the camera off the side of the coach, even though it adds to the work, because then you have to remove the old caulking and recaulk it. Pull the connector out to where it's easily accessible, and then you can work with it. Now here's where you have a decision to make. If you can separate the 2 ends of the green connector without damaging the female end that is attached to the camera wire, and I think that should be possible because I damaged the male end, so I think it should be possible to preserve the female end once you have access to it. And if so, then you may find that you can simply replace the monitor cable to fix the problem. There's a very real possibility this would have solved my problem, because I think the bad connector was in this black part of the plug, or the joint between that plug body and the male part of the green connector. But by the time I understood this, I'd already moved beyond the point of no return for using the existing connector. So once you have good access to the connector, you can try replacing the monitor cable. You can buy one from rvcams.com. This might be the easiest solution to the problem. Might have been for me, but hindsight is 20/20. And remember, press a pointed object here and grab here and pull the 2 ends apart. You, of course, would need to pull the new monitor cable through the dash, and the best way to do that is to tie it and or tape it to the old one as you pull the old one out. To access the connectors on the back of the monitor, to back out these 6 screws and gently lift the whole panel out by grabbing the protruding frame of the radio. I was warned by my local RV repairman to be very careful in handling the panel, as this faceplate can be easily broken, and then you'd have another challenging problem to solve. And note, these 4 screws are machine screws that hold the monitor to the back of the panel. I did not need to remove these. If you try this solution, replacing the monitor cable that is, and it solves your problem, congratulations. You're done, and you don't have to mess with the wire soldering job. And you might share that success in the comments below. But if you proceed on to the direct wire soldering solution, either because the new monitor cable at $33 plus tax and shipping, that's 2020 price, didn't solve the problem, or you just decided you wanted to get rid of the green connector that's prone to failure, then you need to know the details of what conductors in the monitor cable are the active ones. A huge thank you to a helpful gentleman at rvcams.com for helping me to understand this. The shielded white wire is the video. The shield wires of the shielded white wire is the video ground. The unshielded white wire is the positive DC wire, and the black wire is the DC negative or ground. Note that the red and green wires in the monitor cable are not relevant. In fact, I found there to be no continuity in these through the monitor cable. And I use these Dix Engineering heat shrink self-solder wire splice connectors, which I had bought from summitracing.com last December for a Christmas lighting project. Here's a picture of the connected wires. See how the solder melts at the wire junction? These connectors save me from having to use a soldering gun on these delicate wires. But had I not had these heat shrink solder connectors, I would definitely have used the soldering gun. Then I used some 4:1 heat shrink tubing to cover the whole bundle of soldered wires. I reinstalled the camera, 3 screws, and the cowling, 1 screw, and the snap-in cap that surrounds the camera lens. And this is a photo of what I now see on the monitor when I activate the left turn signal. And bear in mind, it's a picture of a video screen, so the image quality is less than you see with the naked eye. This is a picture of the same part of my barn taken with my iPhone positioned at the left turn camera on the driver's side of the coach. And hopefully I will not be losing my left turn camera picture anymore.